Chapter 253. Yang Feng frowned slightly, then lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked outside. He saw a fat middle-aged woman dressed in rags fall in front of an aristocrat's luxurious carriage with a young girl in her arms. A young man dressed in luxurious aristocratic attire, escorted by 6 guards, came up to the middle-aged woman and swore, "I'm sorry, Lord Aristocrat. We were jostled by the crowd. We'll go now. We're very sorry for offending you." The fat middle-aged woman embraced her daughter and apologized in a low voice. After scolding, the young aristocrat felt very comfortable. He was about to wave his hand to have the 2 people leave, when suddenly his eyes lit up and he stared at the middle-aged woman's daughter, unable to shift his gaze away. Although the middle-aged woman's daughter's face was covered in a faint layer of dust, but if you looked carefully, you would find that her eyes were bright and spirited, her facial features were delicate and attractive, and her skin was as smooth as jade. She was very beautiful. The young aristocrat's eyes lit up, and he said with an unbridled smile, "What a beautiful girl! It seems that my luck is pretty good today. Take her away. Take it as a punishment for these 2 lowly commoners offending me." 2 guards immediately stepped forward and forcefully pulled the young girl away from the middle-aged woman's embrace. They then kicked the middle-aged woman, causing her to fall to the ground. The young and beautiful girl let out a mournful cry, "Mother! Save me! Mama!" Some commoners who still had a conscience couldn't help but turn their heads, unwilling to see this scene. When the warriors of the St. Toulon city standing a dozen meters away saw the family crest on the young aristocrat's luxurious carriage, they fell silent. "Stop!" At this moment, a stern shout came from the side. Gazes focused on the place where the voice came from. The young aristocrat turned his head and saw Yang Feng alight the carriage. "What a beautiful little girl!" Busso also alighted from the carriage. As soon as he saw the beautiful and charming girl, his eyes bloomed with excitement. The young aristocrat turned around and asked coldly, "Who are you?" Andro took a step forward and shouted, "How dare you? The distinguished sir in front of you is Sir Earl Ian, the hereditary Earl of the Red Earth Wasteland conferred by His Majesty the Great Emperor." "Sir Earl? That's a hereditary Earl." When the people near the city gate heard Andro's voice, they immediately revealed a trace of reverence in their eyes. These people mingled in the St. Toulon city and were much more knowledgeable than people from small places. The power of a hereditary count was more than 100 times greater than that of a court count. A hereditary earl, even in the imperial capital, was an extraordinary person. The arrogant young noble immediately changed his demeanor. He became courteous and said, "So it's Count Ian of the Red Lands. I'm Angelo, the 3rd in-line heir of the Andino family. What can I do for you?" Yang Feng said lightly, "I've taken a fancy to this woman." Angelo's expression changed slightly, and he hesitated. Busso also came over and said arrogantly, "Angelo, since the Count of the Red Earth Wasteland has taken a fancy to this lowly person, just let him have this lowly commoner. Otherwise, I'll have a talk with your father Andino." When Angelo saw Busso, his pupils constricted slightly. He revealed a graceful smile and handed 2 invitations to Yang Feng and Busso. "Since you like her, Earl Ian, then you can have these 2 lowly people. Earl Ian, Governor Busso, it's my father's birthday in a few days. Please do me the honor and come for a chat." Yang Feng and Busso took the invitations. "Then I'll take my leave first." Angelo smiled, turned around, and boarded his carriage. After boarding the carriage, his face darkened and was shrouded in a layer of haze. His eyes flashed with a trace of resentment. Busso's slender eyes had been staring at the beautiful girl. A hint of covetousness appeared on his face as he chuckled and said, "Congratulations, Earl Ian. You got yourself such a top-notch little beauty. Her figure, appearance, and skin are all top-notch. With a little polish, she can become a superb beauty in the future. If you don't want her, can you sell her to me? I can pay 300,000, oh no, 500,000 gold coins to buy this little beauty." Yang Feng said, 500,000 gold coins. That's enough to buy an elven slave. Busso, you're really willing." Busso chuckled and said, Elven slaves aren't fun to play with. If discovered by the Elven Empire, there's the risk of being assassinated. Besides, this little beauty is even more beautiful than elves. It'll definitely be fun to train her. Mom, don't go, don't leave me alone. Don't go, please, don't leave me alone. How can I live if you leave me alone? Don't go. Suddenly, a heart-wrenching cry came from the side. Yang Feng looked in the direction of the cry and saw that the very pretty little beauty had thrown herself on top of the middle-aged woman, crying her heart out. 2 streams of tears washed away the dust on her pretty face, looking extremely pitiful. Yang Feng sighed slightly and said, "Forget it, I'll keep this girl for myself." Busso sighed with some regret, "What a pity." Yang Feng came up to the girl and said lightly, "Do you have anywhere else to go?" The girl raised her tear-stained face and continued to sob. "Master, I don't have any relatives other than my mother. My lord, please help me bury my mother. I'm willing to stay by your side and work like a cow or a horse for you to repay your kindness." Yang Feng said, "Andro, go and bury her properly." Andro took a step forward and said respectfully, "Yes, sir." The girl showed a look of gratitude and said, "Thank you, master." Yang Feng said, "My name is Ian, what's your name?" The girl replied, "Master, my name is Alarina." "Alarina, come with me, let's go into the city together." Yang Feng's eyes flashed with a peculiar glint. He grabbed Alarina's little hand and strode towards the gate of the Saint Toulon city. There was a very powerful barrier at the gate of the Saint Toulon city, which was blessed by the gods. Anyone who entered the Saint Toulon city would be subjected to a magic inspection. Fiends, devils, kindred, dark elves, and other dark and evil life forms would be discovered once they entered the Saint Toulon city. Alarina's pretty face flashed with shyness, and she struggled slightly. Seeing that she couldn't break free from Yang Feng's arm, she let him pull her into the gate of the Saint Toulon city. As soon as Yang Feng arrived at the gate of the Saint Toulon city, a resplendent divine light shot out from the gate and shone on him. The nano-robots of blasphemy hidden in Yang Feng's head immediately simulated the spirit fluctuations of a fanatic of the Weave Goddess. Inside the gate of the Saint Toulon city, even if non-believers entered, they would be discovered in an instant, and then burned to death at the stake. On the Feisua plain, non-believers were unwelcome and regarded as heretics in any country of the human world. They were like stray dogs, unable to be active in the central area of human power. Yang Feng's spirit was taut, his gaze fixed on Alarina, and he was ready to fight. Alarina had a naive look on her face as if she hadn't sensed anything. She allowed the divine light to shine on her body, but it didn't trigger any reaction. Yang Feng's eyebrows creased slightly, and his eyes flashed with a glint of doubt. Did I guess wrong? Was I really lucky to meet such a beautiful girl? A girl of Alarina's level could already be called an absolute beauty. On the Feisua plain, once such a beautiful girl was discovered by an aristocrat in a territory, she would either be pocketed by the aristocrat, offered as a gift to a greater aristocrat, or sold to a slave merchant for a big profit. After entering the Saint Toulon city, Yang Feng silently recited an incantation and pointed at Alarina, and a single target evil detection spell fell on Alarina. Strands of pure white light radiated from Alarina's body, showing that this young lady was a pure person who had never betrayed her conscience and killed any intelligent beings. Yang Feng smiled self-deprecatingly. It seems that I was being paranoid. Shortly after entering the city gate, a handsome young aristocrat with short blonde hair, surrounded by a dozen guards, blocked in front of Yang Feng and company. The young aristocrat blocked in front of Yang Feng and company and said with an arrogant expression, "Ian, Busso, get out here." Yang Feng frowned slightly and slowly alighted from his carriage. Busso also alighted from his carriage. When he saw the young aristocrat, his complexion couldn't help but change. Yang Feng asked, "Who is this guy?" Busso immediately whispered to Yang Feng, "He is Bel, the eldest son of His Highness the Great Prince Andrew." Bel smiled coldly and ordered, "Sure enough, Busso, you colluded with the fiend Ian to harm the interests of the Empire. Men, capture the fiend Ian." "Your Highness." The dozen night-rank guards laughed fiendishly, burst out with tyrannical chi, and rushed at Yang Feng. "You're courting death. Don't interfere." Yang Feng's eyes flashed with killing intent. With a flick of his wrist, a king's sword forged from divine blood steel suddenly appeared in his hand. He took a step forward, erupted with firmament night-rank chi in a flash, and sword rays shone like stars. A mist of blood burst out beside Yang Feng and splashed in all directions. Chapter 254. When he saw this, Busso's heart trembled, and his eyes shimmered with fear. What a scary guy. That's the fiend Ian for you. Ever since Busso and Yang Feng reached a settlement, the relationship between the two parties quickly became closer. Busso's fear of Yang Feng slowly faded. Now that he saw the blood mist and pieces of corpses exploding around Yang Feng, fear welled up inside him, and he finally understood the terrifying meaning of the name Fiend Ian. Andro's eyes flashed with fanaticism and excitement. "This is our Lord, perfect, powerful, callous, and benevolent. How wonderful!" There was a flash of excitement in the eyes of the warriors who followed Yang Feng on expeditions. To them, only such a powerful monarch was worthy of following. As if a god of death walking in the secular world, Yang Feng walked up to in front of Bel, looked coldly at Bel, and unleashed the divine energy of fear in a flash. As if on the verge of life and death, as if one wrong word, one would be burned at the stake, a great fear enveloped Bel. Bel's face was pale, his eyes filled with fear, his body trembled, his mouth was dry, and he didn't dare to move his eyes away from Yang Feng. "Your Highness, these rebels tried to assassinate you. I'll help you kill them all." Yang Feng looked at Bel with an aloof tone and barked, "Your Highness, are you satisfied?" Face pale, Bel took 3 steps back and said tremblingly, "Satisfied. Satisfied. Satisfied." Overbearing, divine energy of fear permeated his body. Yang Feng took a step forward and said threateningly, "I killed these people. Are you satisfied?" "Still not satisfied." Bel said tremblingly, "Well done. Well done." Yang Feng smiled contemptuously and waved his hand, saying, "Okay, you can go now." "Yes. Yes." With a look of fear on his face, Bel mounted his horse and frantically fled into the distance. Busso said with a look of worship, "You're really amazing." Bel was an idiot who didn't even understand the rules of the aristocratic game. It was really difficult to deal with him. You scared him away with just one sentence. "You're really amazing." Ordinary princes still basically followed the rules of the game, and at least on the surface, they were very respectful to the greater nobles. As for Bel, he directly shed all pretense of cordiality with Yang Feng, which in the eyes of aristocrats was the most foolish behavior. However, Bel was of noble status. Busso did not have a good way to deal with him in a short time. Sirens came from afar, and the police of the St. Toulon city's imperial garrison hall were finally dispatched. Dozens of police who had been lurking nearby quickly rushed over. As soon as the policemen arrived at the scene, they saw more than a dozen corpses on the ground. Many of the policemen turned pale and their bodies trembled. An inspector hesitated for a moment, then took more than a dozen policemen to block in front of Yang Feng and his party, before saying with a gloomy expression, "I am the garrison hall's level 1 Inspector Bessio. I suspect that you are related to this vicious murder case. Please come with me to the police station." Busso smiled coldly, then pulled out a whip and mercilessly lashed it at Bessio's face, leaving a deep whip mark. Busso hugged his face in pain, curled up and howled in pain. Busso said condescendingly and contemptuously, "I am the governor of the Melinson province, a baron of the Busso Empire. This is the Earl of the Red Earth Wasteland, Earl Ian. We just killed these assassins who tried to assassinate His Highness Bel. This is justice, this is self-defense, understand? You lowlifes." The policemen suddenly turned pale and trembled, realizing that they might have been involved in a struggle between bigwigs. The struggle between bigwigs of the Morance Empire was extremely cruel, so it was normal for the aftermath to kill some nobodies. Busso barked arrogantly, "Everyone here is our witness. If you want to arrest us, Wait until you get an order from His Majesty the Emperor or the aristocratic Senate. Get lost. Otherwise, I'll kill you lowlifes." With a brush, the dozens of policemen quickly dispersed, revealing a path for Yang Feng's group to walk on. Yang Feng sighed inside. This is the power of power. If Yang Feng didn't have enough power, then he wouldn't have been a hereditary peer greater aristocrat of the Morin's Empire. Even if he was a great wizard, others didn't know that he had promoted to a level 3 warlock. He would have been hunted down and had to flee in a sorry state for killing people in the Saint Toulon city. However, with the status of a hereditary peer earl of the Morin's Empire, only His Majesty the Emperor, the aristocratic Senate responsible for aristocratic affairs, and the temples of the churches had the right to adjudicate and try Yang Feng. Only after the garrison hall and other authorities had collected sufficient evidence, submitted it to the 3 major forces and obtained approval, would they have the right to arrest Yang Feng. This was the privilege of greater aristocrats. Countless people in the Morin's Empire yearned to become greater aristocrats because of the various privileges greater aristocrats had. Even many sacred swordsmen and legend wizards served bigwigs for the sake of hereditary aristocratic titles and fiefs. In the Morin's Empire, which was an ancient empire with a heritage of more than 100,000 years, it was very difficult to become a hereditary peer aristocrat step by step. Even sacred swordsmen had to serve the empire and make enough contributions before they could become a hereditary peer aristocrat. Otherwise, they could only carry the title of a court aristocrat. If Yang Feng hadn't occupied the remote Red Earth wasteland, developed it into a fertile land, and decisively chosen to annex it, he would have satisfied the emperor's vanity to expand his territory. If he satisfied the vanity of the emperor of the Morin's Empire to expand his territory, it was basically impossible for him to become a hereditary peer aristocrat of the Morin's Empire. The Orthics family had great power in the Saint Toulon city. Busso quickly arranged a large, well-equipped villa for Yang Feng and his party to settle in. After Busso arranged everything, he invited Yang Feng with an apologetic expression. "Ian, let's go for a drink. I owe you an explanation for today's matter." Yang Feng replied with a smile, "Okay." Along with a few guards, the two of them left the villa, entered 2 luxurious carriages, and went inside the Saint Toulon city. The carriages stopped in front of a magnificent hotel that covered an extremely large area and looked like a small manor. Yang Feng and Busso alighted the carriage. The beautiful and Gaiety Hotel is one of the 4 best hotels in the Saint Toulon city. It's very distinctive. "Let's go in," Busso said with a mysterious smile. Yang Feng smiled and followed Busso into the beautiful and Gaiety Hotel. As soon as he entered the beautiful and Gaiety Hotel, Yang Feng saw elves, foxmen, catmen, dogmen, and other beautiful women of various races dressed gorgeously. It was a dazzling sight. When some relatively pure men saw such a scene for the first time, they didn't even know where to put their eyes. "Welcome to the beautiful and Gaiety Hotel. Distinguished guests, we will serve you wholeheartedly and give you a wonderful night." When the dozens of beautiful women of various races saw Yang Feng and Busso enter, they humbly prostrated themselves on the ground and spoke in unison, as if they were holy maidens serving gods. Yang Feng asked curiously, "Elves? They dare to use elves here? Isn't the master of this place afraid of being assassinated by the experts of the Elven Empire?" Elven slaves were one of the most precious female slaves on the Feisua plain. The Elven Empire hated people who used elven slaves the most, as it would bring them decades or even centuries of pain. Once someone was found to be using elven slaves, the Elven Empire would send experts to assassinate them. Busso said with a smile, "This is the Saint Toulon city, not the Elven Woods. If elven experts dare to come here, they'll just give us a few more playthings." The Saint Toulon city was filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Even if Starry Sky Warlock rank experts came here to behave atrociously, they would be suppressed. No matter how angry the experts of the Elven Empire were, they couldn't do anything about it. At this moment, a mature woman with a voluptuous figure, long wavy blue hair, a charming and enchanting appearance, and a touch of fragrance wafted over. She said with a refreshing smile on her face, "Governor Busso, you're here. Busso's eyes flashed with infatuation, and he caressed the hand of the mature woman twice, saying with a smile, "Annie, take us to the heaven-grade private room." Annie smiled sweetly, looked at Yang Feng and asked curiously, "Okay, who is this?" Busso replied with a smile, "This is the Red Earth Wasteland's Earl Ian. He's a hereditary peer earl, so don't neglect him." A dignified look welled up in Annie's eyes. She smiled sweetly and said with a faint hint of respect, "So it's Earl Ian. Hello, I'm one of the managers of the Beautiful and Gaiety Hotel. If you need anything, you can ask me. The Beautiful and Gaiety Hotel will meet all your needs." Yang Feng replied lightly, "Okay." Under Annie's lead, Yang Feng and his party entered the Beautiful and Gaiety Hotel. Along the way, Yang Feng's horizons were broadened. The Beautiful and Gaiety Hotel was filled with beautiful women and had a variety of ways to play. Even he, who came from Earth, couldn't help but widen his horizons. Eventually, under Ain's lead, Yang Feng's group of 2 came to a spacious, secluded, and completely different from the outside world. Busso said with a wretched smile, "How about it? Are you interested? Let's go out and have some fun after dinner?" Chapter 255. Yang Feng said with a smile, "Sounds good. However, I don't intend to indulge myself before I achieve my goal." Busso asked curiously, "What's your goal? Can I have a listen?" Yang Feng replied with a smile, "The pursuit of truth and eternal life." Busso couldn't help laughing, and his eyes revealed a trace of disapproval, saying, "The pursuit of truth and eternal life? That's the dream of all wizards. Right, you're also a wizard." Even gods didn't dare to say that they could live forever. For a trifling great wizard to set such a goal, it was somewhat unrealistic in Busso's view. Busso said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Ian. Bell should be looking for trouble with me. After all, the Orthox family supports His Highness Garca, the 6th Prince of the Empire. Since you came to the St. Talon city with me, they regarded you as one of His Highness Garca's men." Yang Feng was mentally prepared. The Orthox family worked so hard to help Yang Feng get the precious hereditary peer earl title, making Yang Feng a greater aristocrat of the Morince Empire. Of course, they also wanted to get something in return. Seeing the expressionless face of Yang Feng, Busso felt uncertain and quickly said, "Ian, the 6th Prince Garca is talented, intelligent, and amiable. If he can ascend to the throne in the future, it will be a great boon for the entire Morince Empire." Yang Feng said with a faint smile, "I don't care what will happen to the Morince Empire after he ascends to the throne. I only care about what benefits I can get if he ascends to the throne." At this time, Yang Feng was already a hereditary peer-grader aristocrat. Like Busso, he already had the qualifications to participate in the struggle for the highest power in the Morince Empire. He would become a behind-the-scenes manipulator, unlike the nobodies who were forced to get involved in their plots. As long as you support me to ascend to the throne, I'll confer you the title of Duke and give you the Funès province as your fief." Following a hearty laugh, a handsome young man with short, dazzling blonde hair and dressed in white casual clothes walked into the room with a smile on his face. Behind the young man was a beautiful girl with a golden ponytail. She was dressed in men's clothing, but her breasts were bulging, and she exuded a beautiful and noble aura. It was a young man with an ordinary build, short blue hair, and an ordinary appearance. He exuded a capable and experienced aura of a soldier. A tall, handsome, and arrogant young man with a long sword hanging from his waist appeared. He was about 27 or 28 years of age. Busso hurriedly got up and saluted the young man. "Greetings, Your Highness." Yang Feng also got up, gave the young man an aristocratic salute, and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "Greetings, Your Highness." "Alright, don't stand on ceremony." Garca wore a smile that gave people a good impression at first sight. He walked directly to the main seat and sat down. The girl exuding a noble temperament sat on the left side of Garca. The tall and handsome young man sat down next to the girl. The man with an ordinary appearance sat on the right side of Garca. Garca enthusiastically praised, "Let me introduce you. These two are Governor Busso, the Earl of the Red Earth Wasteland, the Earl of the Red Earth Wasteland, the Earl of the Red Earth Wasteland, who accomplished what countless legendary heroes wanted to do but failed to do. He built a city of miracles in the desolate and silent Red Earth Wasteland. When Yang Feng heard this, he felt a sense of familiarity towards the sixth prince, who he was most proud of, when he heard this. The tall and handsome young man stared at Yang Feng with deep jealousy in the abyss of his eyes. Garca said with a smile, "Earl Ian, this is my sister Elena, this is my good brother Goina, and this is Jiran, the chief disciple of the lightning sacred swordsman." Jiran, who is less than 30 years old, has cultivated his lightning chi to the Star Knight rank. He is the most promising young martial arts genius in the St. Toulon city to promote to a sacred swordsman. Jiran, who was sitting next to Elena, showed a proud smile at once. To be able to cultivate to the Star Knight rank before 30 years old, this cultivation speed was extremely astonishing even in the Morin's Empire. Even with the guidance of a famous teacher, his cultivation speed was so fast, which proved how formidable Jiran's talent in the way of the sword was. Garca said directly, "Earl Ian, as long as you support me. In the future, after I ascend the throne, I will definitely confer you the title of Duke and give you the Funès province as your fief." The Funès province, which bordered the Red Earth Wasteland, was a sparsely populated, resource-poor province of the Morin's Empire and was covered in ice and snow all year round. Although the area of the Funès province was 2 to 3 times that of other ordinary provinces, but its population was less than 1/20th of that of other provinces. It was the most barren province of the Morin's Empire. This was why Garca was so generous as to confer the Funès province to Yang Feng. Yang Feng frowned slightly and swept Elena, Goina, and Jiran with his gaze. Garca roped in Yang Feng's side in front of these 3 people, which made Yang Feng worry. As if seeing through Yang Feng's thoughts, Garca said with a meaningful smile, "Earl Ian, you don't have to worry. Elena is my half-sister. Goina is my good brother since I was a child. Jiran is my good friend. They won't betray me. Besides, my imperial father is well aware of our affairs. As for you, in the eyes of many people, you're already one of my people." The Orthics family was a hardcore supporter of Garca because Garca was the biological son of the South Royal Consort Katerina. If he ascended the throne in the future, the Orthics family would be able to become extremely glorious and gain great power. In fact, Busso was Garca's uncle. The Orthics family protected Yang Feng in the court and made him the Earl of the Red Earth Wasteland. In the eyes of many people, Yang Feng was already a member of the Sixth Prince's party. Once this imprint was made, it was very difficult to remove. Yang Feng pondered for a while, and then said decisively, "I'm willing to serve you, Your Highness." In the Morin's Empire, Yang Feng had already offended Duke Iser and the Great Prince's party. If he didn't find a backer immediately, it might be difficult for him to even leave the St. Toulon city alive. Garca said with a forthright smile, "Ha, good. Good. From today onwards, we're on the same side." With a hereditary peer greater aristocrat with 20,000 private troops, more than 100,000 slaves, and his own fief joining his side, Garca's odds of ascending the throne increased by 2 to 2 points. Garca clapped his hands, and beautiful human top beauties with their own style walked in from outside, a fragrance wafting from them. Yang Feng's eyes lit up slightly. These beauties with light makeup were extremely outstanding. On Earth, they would be the prettiest girls in schools and classes. Garca coquettishly crooked his finger, and a beautiful woman who looked like a ripe peach came to his side and snuggled into his embrace. Garca said with a somewhat unrestrained smile, "Pick whichever you like. If you want elves, foxes, or catwomen of other races, just say the word and they'll come." Busso laughed and directly picked a tall, big-breasted beauty. Goina picked a beautiful woman who exuded a coquettish and unrestrained aura. Yang Feng smiled and picked a petite, well-endowed blue-haired girl with a pure and pitiful temperament. Elena and Jiran, on the other hand, rejected the women and made them leave one after another. Garca pinched the chest of the beautiful woman in his embrace, smiled slightly, and clapped his hands. "Earl Ian, you came at the right time. I'll let you experience the most wonderful show of the beautiful and Gaiety Hotel. Suddenly, pleasant music, like the tinkling of spring water flowing in the mountains, sounded. A stunning beauty with dazzling blonde hair, shrouded in a layer of beautiful light, full of mystery, charm, appeared in the center of the stage in the private room like a goddess who had descended from the god realm. 36 very beautiful human girls surrounded the stunningly beautiful woman. As if setting off the green leaves of a red flower, they used their beauty to set off the stunningly beautiful woman in the center. The moment the stunningly beautiful woman appeared in the center of the stage accompanied by the melodious music, the room seemed to have become her domain. All eyes were deeply attracted by her. In the private room, she seemed to be the only protagonist. Yang Feng's gaze was also deeply attracted by the stunningly beautiful woman. When the stunningly beautiful woman moved, as if moonlight had fallen on the earth, a beautiful elf who was favored and blessed by the gods performed a beautiful dance to please the gods. The graceful dance was full of endless charm. With every leap and turn, the dancer's beauty and charm were displayed to the fullest. The dance of the 36 beautiful human girls in the center of the stage was also very beautiful and moving. But in front of the stunningly beautiful blonde woman's dance, as if in front of the sun, they were dim. Everyone's gazes were focused on the beautiful sun. They couldn't take their eyes off it, as if even breathing was a great waste. Finally, the stunningly beautiful woman stopped. As if the sun had restrained its radiance, she bowed towards Yang Feng and the others, and then retreated together with the 36 beautiful girls. Who is she? When the stunningly beautiful blonde woman retreated, Yang Feng finally couldn't help but ask. It was the first time that Yang Feng saw such a beautiful and moving dance. He, who had always let nature take its course, couldn't help but be slightly moved and coveted her. Chapter 256. Garca smiled heartily and closed the distance between him and Yang Feng without leaving a trace. Ian, sure enough, you asked who she is. At that time, after watching her dance, my first words were exactly the same as yours. Garca smiled and said, if it was another woman if you liked her, I could give her to you immediately. Unfortunately, not her. Her name is Florence, and she is a divine chosen of the goddess of dance. Apart from the aloof gods, no one in the Morin's empire can force her to do anything against her will. The goddess of dance Frederica was the youngest daughter of the strong divine power rank radiant primary god Prados of the Zalia divine system and the intermediate divine power rank empress of the earth goddess Maria. The radiant primary god Prados and the empress of the earth goddess Maria had a total of 9 daughters. 6 of his daughters had already died in the long battle, leaving only 3 daughters behind. Their 3 daughters were the goddess of joy Dorothy, the goddess of love Mavis, and the goddess of dance Frederica. Among them, the goddess of joy Dorothy and the goddess of dance Frederica were feeble divine power rank gods, while the goddess of love Mavis was a weak divine power rank god. As the goddess of dance, Frederica was known for her beautiful dance moves that could make even the gods fall in love with her. At the same time, she was also known for her weak combat strength. However, no one dared to bully her. That was because the radiant primary god Prados and the empress of the earth goddess Maria doted on their daughter very much. As Frederica's divine chosen, Florence might not have much power in the Morin's empire. However, anyone who dared to touch her would be regarded as blasphemy and would be burned at the stake. Even the emperor of the Morin's empire didn't dare to force Florence to be his plaything. Yang Feng said with some regret, "So that's how it is." Before entering the Feisua plane, Yang Feng had already studied the Feisua plane. The divine chosen were the existences closest to the gods and most doted on by the gods. From time to time, the gazes of the gods would fall on their chosen. Yang Feng didn't dare to provoke such existences. Garca smiled and clapped his hands, saying, "However, although I can't give her to you, but I can still invite her to have a drink with me." A beautiful human race woman standing on the side immediately retreated. Not long after, a stunning beauty wearing a white dress and a golden ponytail walked into the room with a smile. Her skin was as translucent as jade, and her pretty face was slightly flushed. There was a faint fragrance coming from her body, and there were still some water droplets at the tip of her hair that had yet to dry. Yang Feng's eyes lit up slightly. After taking a bath, although Florence wasn't as stunning as she was on the dance floor, but she was still extremely beautiful, with a mix of innocence and sexy charm, extremely enchanting. After Florence entered the room, she swept everyone with her gaze, smiled, and gracefully sat on an empty seat next to Yang Feng, a fragrance wafting from her. A look of disappointment flashed in the eyes of Busso and Jiran. Garca smiled and introduced, "Florence, you already know all the friends here. Let me introduce a new friend to you. This is the Red Earth Wasteland's Earl Ian, the legend Earl of the Red Earth Wasteland, who accomplished what countless legend heroes wanted to do, yet failed to do. He built a miracle city in the desolate and silent Red Earth Wasteland." Florence stared at Yang Feng with curiosity in her beautiful eyes and revealed a sweet smile. "You are the Red Earth Wasteland's Earl Ian. Hello, I am Florence, an ordinary dancer. It's a pleasure to meet you." Yang Feng said politely in a very skilled aristocratic manner, "I am Ian, beautiful Miss Florence. It's my honor to meet you." As if a curious baby, Florence asked, "I have been to the Red Earth Wasteland once. The climate there is dry, there is no water, and there is a lack of food. Then how did you build a city there?" Yang Feng replied with a faint smile, "Under the guidance of the mighty Weave Goddess, in order to spread the glory of the goddess, the miracle city was united and created a miracle. Only then did we finally build the miracle city." Florence was met with a soft rebuff, and a strange look flashed past her beautiful eyes. There had never been a man who dared to speak to her like this after witnessing her beautiful dance. In the past, as long as she slightly opened her mouth to ask, those men would automatically boast about their achievements and tell her everything, displaying their greatness. Garca interrupted with a smile, "Florence, you don't have to ask any more questions. Everyone has their own secrets, don't you?" Florence revealed an angry expression, looking very lovable. "If you don't want to ask, then don't ask. Anyway, I don't really want to know." Yulina suddenly asked with a smile, "Ian, I heard that you are an alchemist and have refined the magic sword Warrior's Edge. Do you still have the Warrior's Edge?" If someone else asked me, I would definitely say no. But since the beautiful Miss Yulina asked me, then even if I don't have it, I still have it. Yang Feng smiled and flipped his hand, and a Warrior's Edge magic sword suddenly appeared in his hand. Bright magic radiance revolved around the Warrior's Edge, making it look full of mystery and power. When Jiran saw the Warrior's Edge, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he could hardly move his eyes away, as if he had seen a peerless beauty. Yang Feng smiled and handed the Warrior's Edge to Yulina. Yulina looked at the Warrior's Edge, her beautiful eyes flashed with a peculiar glint, and she drew a dagger and slashed at the Warrior's Edge. Ding! Along with a crisp sound, the dagger made of fine steel broke into 2 pieces. "So this is the Warrior's Edge, it's really a good sword." Yulina toyed with the Warrior's Edge fondly. Her beautiful eyes flickered with a peculiar glint, and she said unhurriedly, "The Gale Sacred Swordsman Domitio defeated the Gale Sacred Swordsman Favela by relying on the Warrior's Edge. Master Ian, the Warrior's Edge you refined is now a treasure sword that countless martial artists in the St. Toulon city desire the most." Yang Feng said with a smile, "Princess Yulina, since you like it, then I'll give it to you." The most precious part of the Warrior's Edge series of magic swords was the divine blood steel mixed into the sword. Yang Feng had a lot of divine blood steel. If it wasn't for the fear of arousing suspicion and lowering the price, everyone in the Miracle City would have a Warrior's Edge. "Give it to me?" Yulina stared at Yang Feng with her beautiful eyes, and then suddenly said with a smile, "Ian, this Warrior's Edge is hard to come by in the St. Toulon city, and its price has already exceeded 3 million gold coins. Are you really willing to give it to me?" Yang Feng said carelessly, "As long as you like it, Yulina, then this sword is yours." Holding the Warrior's Edge, Yulina fondled it fondly and fell into hesitation. On the Feisua plain, 3 million gold coins was a huge fortune. If used to buy slaves, you could even buy 300,000 slaves. Yulina hesitated again and again, and finally shook her head and returned the warrior's edge to Yang Feng. It's too valuable, I can't accept it. Yang Feng was slightly surprised, but he also smiled and took back the warrior's edge. Jiran suddenly said, Master Ian, I heard that you practice magic and martial dual cultivation. You're not only a great wizard, but also a firmament knight rank swordsman. Why don't we compare notes on swordsmanship here? Of course, I'll suppress my chi to the firmament knight rank. When he heard Jiran's words, Garka frowned slightly and looked at Jiran, who clenched his fists and had an envious expression on his face. In the room, both Florence and Yulina favored Yang Feng, and Yang Feng was the center of their conversation. This filled Jiran, who had always thought highly of himself, with jealousy. After he heard that Yang Feng was willing to give the warrior's edge worth 3 million gold coins to Yulina, Jiran could no longer suppress his jealousy. All right, I also want to give it a try and see to what extent my strength has reached. Yang Feng looked at Jiran, whose handsome face was slightly distorted due to jealousy, smiled faintly, got up, walked towards an open area outside, and drew an ordinary fine steel sword. When Jiran saw Yang Feng draw an ordinary fine steel sword, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The sword in his hand was an excellent fine steel sword, which was several notches stronger than the standard military swords of the Morin's Empire. However, it couldn't compare to the warrior's edge magic sword. When he saw Yang Feng exchange it for an ordinary fine steel sword, he heaved a sigh of relief. Damn it, you're not even using the warrior's edge, are you looking down on me? I'll let you know the price of looking down on me. Jiran had just heaved a sigh of relief, when anger welled up inside him. Staring at Yang Feng with anger in his eyes, he unsheathed the sword at his waist and walked up to Yang Feng. Jiran suddenly added, We're just exchanging pointers in swordsmanship. Master Ian, don't use magic at a critical time. The abyss of Yulina's and Florence's beautiful eyes suddenly flashed with contempt. Mages were extremely weak in close combat. For a star knight like Jiran to fight a wizard in close combat was already somewhat unfair, yet he still didn't let Yang Feng use magic, which was somewhat shameless. Garka frowned slightly and took a deep look at Jiran. Yang Feng's eyes flashed with a scorching fighting spirit, and he said with a light smile, No problem. I won't use magic. In other words, you alone can't force me to use magic. Chapter 257. What a big tone. Let's see how I defeat you. Jiran's eyes flashed with a glint of fury. He barked, erupted with firmament knight rank chi, and unleashed the lightning sacred swordsman's lightning sword art. Like lightning, dense sword rays swept towards Yang Feng, as if to devour him. Yang Feng's gaze was calm, and he also erupted with firmament knight rank chi. After promoting to a level 3 warlock, Yang Feng's physical constitution was comparable to that of many level 3 extraordinary life forms. After Jiran erupted with chi to strengthen his body, his physical constitution was far inferior to Yang Feng's. If Yang Feng cast a spell and transformed into a humanoid black dragon, he would be able to smash Jiran's sword rays with a punch, and then smash Jiran's heart with another punch. Such a tyrannical fighting style was the favorite fighting style of extraordinary life forms such as dragons, ancient fiends, ancient devils, multi-armed trolls, and others with tyrannical bodies. This tyrannical fighting style also had its weaknesses. If you encountered an expert wielding a sword forged from divine blood steel, you would be killed in an instant. Some extraordinary life forms with extremely powerful physiques were restrained by human warlocks wielding secret treasures, and were often insta-killed before they could display their fighting strength. Of course, there were also various fighting methods in the demonic fighting sect, and swordsmanship was one of them. The demonic fighting sword art was a sword art that had been thoroughly tempered, and its power was boundless. Yang Feng unleashed the demonic fighting sword art. His sword moves were bold and unrestrained, and sword chi crisscrossed. As if lightning, the sword rays Jiran's sword turned into slammed into Yang Feng's sword rays and issued crisp sounds. No matter how fast he urged the sword rays, they were easily blocked by Yang Feng. Elena stared at Yang Feng with extraordinary splendor in her beautiful eyes, and her heart surged, Amazing, such a strong swordsmanship. His swordsmanship is even stronger than Jiran's. Garka's eyes shone brightly, and he was shocked. Amazing! Apart from gods, there are still people who can practice magic and martial dual cultivation. Are they this strong? On the Feisua plain, magic and martial dual cultivation was practically a legendary term. Only gods, elves, fiends, dragons, and other powerful beings with talent far beyond that of humans could practice magic and martial dual cultivation. Due to the existence of the weave, every time a human magician memorized a spell model, they would forget it the next day. It was extremely difficult for a human to become an official magician, and they would need to exhaust all their energy. As for great mages and magic shooters, they were realms that only magic geniuses who devoted themselves to magic research could reach. Whether it was martial arts or magic, Yang Feng was so formidable, it was simply eye-catching. When Florence saw this scene, her beautiful eyes flashed with an enigmatic glint, and her gaze fell on Yang Feng, and a mysterious and magnificent divine rune flashed in the abyss of her beautiful eyes. Yang Feng's initial execution of the demonic fighting sword art was still somewhat jerky. After all, it was his first time using swordsmanship against an existence outside of the virtual reality battle cabin, a genuine human swordsman. However, with his strong physique and hard training in the virtual reality battle cabin, he quickly mastered the demonic fighting sword technique and completely controlled the rhythm of the battle. No! You're a magician. How can your swordsmanship be so strong? No, I don't believe it. You're going to lose. After fighting for a long time, Jiran was suppressed by Yang Feng instead. His eyes turned bloodshot, and flames of jealousy attacked his heart. With a roar, he promoted his chi from the Firmament Knight rank to the Star Knight rank, and resplendent sword rays suddenly soared and stabbed at Yang Feng's vital points. Stop! Jiran! Garka's complexion changed greatly, and he barked, and Sky Knight rank chi erupted from him in an attempt to deter Jiran. Goyina, who was sitting silently next to Garka, erupted with Star Knight rank chi, unsheathed his sword, and, like a stream of light, flicked at Jiran's sword. Idiot! I've given you face for nothing. Yang Feng smiled coldly, his eyes flashed coldly, and he slashed at Jiran's sword with the demonic sweeping sword. Like a humanoid dragon, he erupted in a flash and sent Jiran's sword flying, blood flowing from the webbing between his thumb and forefinger. Then he punched ruthlessly at Jiran's dantian. Garka's complexion changed greatly, and he exclaimed, Ian, don't. Goyina's complexion changed slightly, and he flicked his sword at Yang Feng's arm in an attempt to force him to withdraw his fist. A cold look in his eyes, Yang Feng silently recited an incantation, and a powerful warping force field appeared around him in a flash. Twisted by the powerful warping force field, Goyina was flung aside, and he watched helplessly as Yang Feng's fist slammed into Jiran's dantian. A frightening chi rushed into Jiran's dantian in a flash, crushed his dantian and meridians, and abolished his chance to cultivate chi. Wah! Jiran's complexion paled, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Then, his face twisted, he collapsed on the ground in pain, and curled up like a shrimp. Yang Feng said with a faint smile, Your Highness Garka, I'm very sorry. Jiran wanted to kill me, but I was too heavy-handed and accidentally crippled him. I'm really sorry, I made a mistake. Garka smiled bitterly at once. Yang Feng even used a spell. This was deliberate, not a mistake. Obviously, Yang Feng didn't want to leave behind a hostile enemy like Jiran. As such, he used a thunderous method to cripple Jiran. Garka didn't even get a chance to make peace. Garka clapped his hands, and several beautiful maids came out. He pointed at Jiran on the ground and said lightly, Take my good friend Jiran and treat him. The several maids responded respectfully, then lifted Jiran and left. Garka frowned slightly and said with a bitter smile, Ian, you were too heavy-handed. Jiran might not be much. However, his master, the lightning sacred swordsman, is ranked 15th in the St. Toulon city. Now that you crippled Jiran, the lightning sacred swordsman won't take this lying down. Yang Feng said with a faint smile, A trifling sacred swordsman is just an ordinary commoner. Would he dare to assassinate me? On some low-level planes, a sacred swordsman was already the most powerful existence on the plane. On those planes, the status of sacred swordsman was naturally very high. However, on the Feisuo plane, although sacred swordsmen were powerful, but they weren't rare. In the St. Toulon city alone, there were more than 40 famous sacred swordsmen, and this didn't include the hidden experts of churches and major forces. If it was the Morince Empire's all-gods sacred mountain, then the number of legend-rank powerhouses would be even more. Sacred swordsmen were respected and had a very high status in the St. Toulon city, but they still couldn't compare to a hereditary peer earl with 20,000 troops. Jiran was jealous when he saw Yang Feng, because he knew very well that even if he promoted to a sacred swordsman in the future, his status would be far inferior to that of a hereditary peer earl like Yang Feng. Garka pondered for a while before saying, under normal circumstances, he shouldn't be so irrational. However, if he swallows his pride and acts recklessly, he's a most dangerous assassin. Yang Feng asked, is Jiran the only disciple of the lightning sacred swordsman? Garka replied, no, the lightning sacred swordsman has dozens of disciples, but Jiran is the most outstanding one. Yang Feng said meaningfully, the lightning sacred swordsman has a lot of family and friends in the St. Toulon city, right? Garka suddenly smiled and said, yes, he does have a lot of family and friends in the St. Toulon city. The lightning sacred swordsman had too many concerns in the St. Toulon city, which meant that he couldn't take a risk and act as an assassin to assassinate a greater aristocrat like Yang Feng, who had a lot of troops and countless subordinates. Otherwise, once he was forced to wander the world, his family, friends, and disciples would be avenged and die a tragic death. In fact, in the Morince Empire, if they weren't forced to live, or if there was another reason, no sacred swordsman would be willing to assassinate a greater aristocrat. Basically, no sword saint would be willing to assassinate a great noble. That would definitely incur the wrath of the masses, and the consequences would be miserable. Yang Feng said lightly, besides, it's not like Jiran can't be saved. If the lightning sacred swordsman wants to save Jiran, then let him come see me. Garka said with a smile, I'll pass on your words to him. The banquet continued. During the banquet, everyone chatted merrily. Shortly after Yang Feng attended the banquet, Faldina, whose spirit force was sealed and who was sleeping in a room, suddenly opened her eyes, the corners of her mouth rose slightly, and she jumped out of bed. Faldina silently recited an incantation and waved her lily-white hand, and a paper person suddenly flew out, gently floated onto the bed, and turned into a person identical to her. Faldina pointed with a finger, and the door of the room opened. She walked out of the room in a dignified manner. As soon as she stepped out of the room, she turned invisible and disappeared. No one in the villa noticed Faldina's disappearance. In a room of a luxurious inn not far from Yang Feng's villa, Edith was pacing back and forth, a trace of anxiety hidden between his eyebrows. Suddenly, the door of the room opened on its own. Faldina appeared, threw herself into Edith's arms, and said in a sweet voice, Dear, I missed you so much. Did you miss me? Edith embraced Faldina and spoke very sweet words of love. Of course. I haven't seen you for a few days, but my heart feels like it's going to break. You're the water, I'm the fish. Without you, I can't live for a day. Faldina raised her head and looked at Edith in a daze, saying, Dear, are you ready? I don't want to stay with that damn Ian for a day. Eyes spewing flames of anger, Edith said while stressing each syllable, Of course, I'm ready. If it weren't for those bastards from the Orthix family, His Majesty the Emperor wouldn't have forced our family to capture you alive. I'll make them reap what they sow. Chapter 258. A cold glint flashed past Edith's eyes, and he said solemnly, Faldina, don't worry, I'll arrange everything soon. At that time Ian and Busso, these two beasts, will definitely die without a burial place. Faldina smiled sweetly, nestled in Edith's embrace, and revealed a sweet smile. I believe in you. I'll make Ian head over heels for me. In the distance, at the banquet, Yang Feng's eyes suddenly constricted slightly and flashed brightly, and killing intent flashed past the abyss of his eyes. Foldina was undoubtedly a very charming woman. If it wasn't for Yang Feng's vigilance, he might have really been captivated by her. When the banquet was over, Busso took the beautiful woman in his arms into a private room of the Beautiful and Gaiety Inn. Florence left halfway through the banquet. Garca's group of 3 left the Beautiful and Gaiety Inn with the 2 beautiful women. After drinking a few cups with the little beauty beside him, Yang Feng suddenly waved his hand and had the somewhat regretful little beauty withdraw. From the side of the private room, a beautiful blonde woman walked over gracefully and sat on the seat next to Yang Feng. She was the divine chosen of the goddess of dance, Florence. Florence's beautiful big eyes flickered with a clear and pure light, and she sighed faintly, "Wizard Yin, why did you come to the Saint Talon city and get involved in this whirlpool? The struggle for the throne has always been the most dangerous thing. With your aptitude, if you stay in the Red Earth City, you'll definitely become a legend wizard in the future." Legend wizard? The abyss of Yang Feng's eyes revealed a trace of ridicule. With the tremendous resources at his disposal, he could promote to a great warlock before the age of 100. He didn't care about a trifling legend wizard. On the Feisua plane, only demigods as well as the aloof gods were Yang Feng's targets. Yang Feng's purpose in having his avatar become a member of the gods was to have it enter the Feisua plane. In this way, even if Yang Feng's true body died on the Zhangji plane, he could be reborn as a god on the Feisua plane. On the Feisua plane, there was no one who could cultivate in seclusion for hundreds or even thousands of years and become a god. Only the offspring of 2 gods could be born as gods, and that was only a possibility. Only those who were favored by a powerful god, nurtured with great care, and bestowed with godhood could become a god's subsidiary god. In addition, if anyone wanted to become a god, they would have to establish their own church and force. Only then would they be able to rely on a huge amount of faith power to ignite the divine fire, condense the divine personality, break through the limits of mortals, and become a god. In this process, he had to fight. The struggle for power and profit, the establishment of a huge force, all of these required a huge amount of resources. These resources were already occupied by interest groups, so they could only kill the other party and snatch those resources for themselves. All of this required power and strength. As the center of power of the Morin's Empire, one of the 2 human empires of the Feisua plane, the Saint Talon city, since Yang Feng decided to step into this place, he was already involved in this huge whirlpool. Either he would be crushed by this huge whirlpool, or he would cross this huge whirlpool and obtain huge benefits and power, the power that even sacred swordsmen and legend wizards would bow their heads to. Yang Feng drank a cup of wine in one gulp and said with a smile, "When awake, control the world. When drunk, lie on the knees of beauties. This is the hidden ambition of every man. Most men can become such existences, and even women are no exception. Many ordinary people don't even have the chance to become such people. Now that such an opportunity is in front of me, I can't give it up. When awake, control the world. When drunk, lie on the knees of beauties." Florence quietly mulled over this sentence. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a peculiar splendor, and she suddenly smiled sweetly, saying, "I couldn't tell that you're a poet, Tin, to be able to recite such a charming and profound poem." Yang Feng's gaze suddenly became extremely sharp, and he said with a smile, "Florence, whose people are you?" Florence replied with a smile, "I'm no one's people. I'm the best friend of the 19th princess, Princess Stacy. I came back this time because I don't want to see a friend get involved in this dangerous and turbid whirlpool." Yang Feng carefully stared at Florence, his gaze as sharp as a blade. He remained silent, and a formidable pressure slowly diffused from him. Florence suddenly got up and smiled sweetly, "Okay, I'll go first. If there's a chance, we'll meet again. At that time, if I'm in a good mood, I'll dance for you." Yang Feng was taken aback slightly, then revealed a smile and said lightly, "Okay." Florence waved her lily-white hand, and a slip of paper fluttered in front of Yang Feng. "This is the address of the great sage Adrian. His daughter Tiffany and I are good friends. If there's a chance, go to the great sage's house and take a look. Presumably, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Tell him that I recommended you. At the very least, he won't refuse to let you in." After she finished speaking, Florence turned around and left, a fragrance wafting from her. The divine chosen of the goddess of dance, what an interesting beauty. Yang Feng smiled faintly. His gaze fell on the slip of paper and he memorized the address. The next day, Busso slept until noon before getting up. When Busso came to the private room, he apologized to Yang Feng repeatedly. "I'm sorry. That little vixen is really charming. I'm sorry." Yang Feng put down the book in his hand and said with a faint smile, "Sit down." Busso unconsciously followed Yang Feng's instructions and sat down opposite him. On the table in front of the two people, there were all kinds of rare delicacies. Yang Feng said solemnly, "Tell me about the situation in the capital. Who are our enemies? Who are our friends? Who are our allies?" Although Yang Feng already had the intelligence network of Ardace, but this intelligence network had just been established not long ago. He could only get in touch with the lower class and some ordinary information. Ardace was just an ordinary lesser aristocrat at the border. He couldn't get in touch with the struggles and information of the upper class. Even with the support of a huge amount of money, it wasn't easy to establish a huge intelligence network. Busso said solemnly, "At present, the most promising to inherit the throne in the Morin's Empire are the great Prince Andrei, the third Prince Porta, the sixth Prince Garca, the ninth Prince Sanel, and the 13th Prince Sucre. The other princes have no right to inherit the throne. In the Morin's Empire, only the children of the 2 empresses and 4 consorts had the right to inherit the throne. The other princes and princesses had no right to inherit the throne, and their status was just like that of ordinary aristocrats. They couldn't even compare to a newly promoted greater aristocrat like Yang Feng. The great Prince Andrei, whose mother is Empress Susanna, has the support of the Hansen family, the Uvago family, and the Saukaz family. Susanna is the daughter of the patriarch of the Saukaz family. The third Prince Porta, whose mother is Consort Sophia, has the support of the Seiza family and the Somen family. Sophia is a woman of the Somen family. The sixth Prince Garca has the support of the Orthox family and the Wenda family. The ninth Prince Sanel, whose mother is Consort Eulina. He has the support of the Sorrow family. The 13th Prince Sucre, whose mother is Consort Alva. He has the support of the Kiddo family. In terms of power alone, the great Prince Andrei, the third Prince Porta, and His Highness Garca have the greatest power. With you joining us, our power will be able to contend with the great Prince Andrei," said Busso with an excited expression. When Yang Feng heard that, he realized how important he was. In the Morin's Empire, many greater aristocrats could no longer move forward. They would naturally choose to seek stability and wouldn't get too involved in the power whirlpool. The families mentioned by Busso were all greater aristocrats with high statuses. For the sake of their glory, splendor, wealth, and rank, they had no choice but to go all out. Of course, in addition to the families mentioned by Busso, there were still a large number of small and medium-sized aristocrats surrounding the 5 princes, forming one interest group after another, working hard in order to become a greater aristocrat. As Yang Feng continued to talk with Busso, he gradually gained some understanding of the current situation of the Morin's Empire. Morin's 2867th was old and could die at any time. The 5 princes had their sights locked on the throne. Of the 5 princes, the mother of the great Prince Andrei was a noble empress and had the full support of the 3 families. He was a wise and outstanding man. He was the Grand Marshal of the Southern Army of the Morin's Empire. He commanded the Southern Army to fight the Desert Empire in the south all year round. He won more than he lost. He was a famous general of the Morin's Empire. Among the 5 princes, Andrei outshone others, pressuring the other 4 princes to the point that they couldn't breathe. The 4 princes had a tacit understanding and secretly joined hands to suppress Andrei's forces. At the time in the court, the reason why Yang Feng could become the Earl of the Red Earth Wasteland so smoothly was because the forces of the other 3 princes had a tacit understanding and kept quiet. Even though Yang Feng had joined the camp of the 6th Prince Garca, the four princes were still at a disadvantage against the great Prince Andrei. After all, the four princes were also constantly fighting against each other, unable to form a joint force. After Yang Feng understood the specific situation, he could only smile bitterly in his heart. If he had a choice, he would be more willing to join the faction of the Great Prince. After all, the Great Prince was obviously much more powerful. Whether in terms of legal system or strength, the Great Prince had the advantage. Unfortunately, he had already been labeled, leaving him with no room for choice. Chapter 259. In the following days, Yang Feng went to different banquets. Garca held one banquet after another and introduced Yang Feng to his supporters. When the small and medium-sized aristocrats saw Yang Feng, a hereditary peer aristocrat with great power, join their camp, their confidence in Garca's victory became a bit firmer. At the same time, the aristocrats kept fawning over Yang Feng. In less than 3 days, he received more than a dozen beautiful women, which he accepted one by one without any trace of politeness. On the 4th day, Yang Feng received a decree from Morin's 2867 summoning him. The Victory Palace. This is the Victory Palace. Standing in front of the palace, Yang Feng looked at the exquisite, luxurious, and 50-meter tall palace wall, and his eyes flickered with an enigmatic light. The imperial palace of the Morin's Empire was called the Victory Palace, implying invincibility. After the construction of the Victory Palace, the first emperor of the Morin's Empire asked the gods for their blessings. Thanks to the blessings of the gods, the Victory Palace obtained countless permanent divine spells. As long as the gods didn't die, the divine spells wouldn't disappear. Thanks to the blessings of the gods, even feeble divine force rank gods couldn't smash the city wall of the Victory Palace. Even many demigods couldn't fly in the sky above the Victory Palace. Throughout history, such a sturdy imperial palace had been the site of countless bloodshed. Numerous court coups took place in front of the imperial palace, and more than 500 emperors of the Morin's Empire died in the coups. After pausing for a moment to take a look, Yang Feng followed the attendant and continued to walk towards the imperial palace. As soon as Yang Feng stepped into the gate of the imperial palace, powerful divine spells were cast from the gate and enveloped him. The robots of blasphemy above Yang Feng's head quickly simulated the spirit fluctuations of the fanatics of the Weave Goddess. Once non-believers were discovered in the Saint Toulon city, they would be burned at the stake. The divine spell examination of the Victory Palace was much more powerful than that of the gate. However, it was still deceived by the spirit fluctuations of the fanatics of the Weave Goddess. The attendant leading Yang Feng quietly looked at Yang Feng for a while. After finding that there were no other changes to Yang Feng under the divine spell examination, he continued to lead Yang Feng into the imperial palace. Inside the hall, Morin's 2867 sat on the throne high above and looked down. His aged and turbid eyes flickered with indifference. An official said, "Your Majesty, the Red Earth Earl Ian has arrived." Morin's 2867 said indifferently, "Let him in." Yang Feng slowly stepped into the hall. As soon as he entered the meeting hall, Yang Feng felt a powerful pressure coming from the gold throne, as if the person sitting on the gold throne is the ruler of the world, and no one is allowed to defy him. Within this meeting hall, one of the blessings of the gods was the pressure of an emperor. As soon as one entered the great hall, one would be affected by the pressure of the emperor and would unconsciously be in awe of the man sitting on the throne. Some people who were not mentally strong would feel the pressure in their hearts when they felt the monarch's pressure, and they would not even be able to speak properly. Your humble servant, Ian, Earl of Red Earth of Miracle City, greets your Majesty. Yang Feng stepped forward, knelt on one knee, and saluted Morin's 2867. When aristocrats of the Morin's Empire had an audience with the emperor, the highest form of etiquette was to kneel on one knee. Normally, when aristocrats saw the emperor, they would just bow slightly in salute. However, this was the first time Yang Feng came to have an audience with Morin's 2867, so he had to kneel on one knee. Morin's 2867 looked at Yang Feng curiously and said faintly, "Get up." Yang Feng got up and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Morince 2867 suddenly said, "Ian, I heard that you robbed hundreds of millions of gold coins from the Melinsan province. Is this true?" Gazes of schadenfreude focused on Yang Feng. The officials of Garca's faction became nervous. If Yang Feng didn't respond well, then it would be a disaster. Morince 2867 had a very eccentric temperament. As he grew older, he killed faster and faster, and became more and more unscrupulous. Standing among the courtiers, Busso's back was drenched in cold sweat. He feared that if Yang Feng didn't respond well, then Morince 2867 would order him to be killed. Yang Feng said with a faint smile, "It's true." Morince 2867's eyes suddenly lit up. Yang Feng added without batting an eyelid, "However, Governor Busso is a famous general. After being defeated by him 44 times in a row, this humble servant finally came to his senses. Furthermore, I returned all the plundered property to the aristocrats who were plundered by this humble servant." Morince 2867's face became gloomy at once. He originally planned to squeeze hundreds of millions of gold coins from Yang Feng and enjoy himself. An official of the Great Prince's faction jumped out and barked, "Ian, do you think you can return it just because you said so? Do you have any evidence of returning the property to the poor aristocrats you plundered? If you don't, then you're deceiving His Majesty and committing the crime of deceiving the sovereign." Morince 2867's face became even gloomier. Yang Feng smiled and flipped his hand, and 3 vials of magic elixirs blossoming with blood-like radiance appeared in his hand. "Your Majesty, I'm a wizard and a grand pharmacist proficient in pharmacology. When I studied pharmacology and traveled the world, I found a potion formula passed down from ancient times. That magic potion formula was as strong as a dragon. As a man, I studied this prescription and successfully concocted a few bottles of dragon-strengthening magic potion. I would like to dedicate these vials to you." Morince 2867's eyes constricted and flashed with excitement. He shouted impatiently, "Present them." Once taken by a man, the potion dragon-like strength would allow him to maintain a dragon-like vigor and terrifying physical strength. Besides, not only did it have no side effects, but it also had the effect of strengthening the body. Before the Battle of the Gods, this was the favorite potion of the emperors and greater aristocrats in the secular world. However, due to dragon-like strength, this potion wasn't valued in the era of the Battle of the Gods. Only then did it disappear in the long river of history. In the Victory Palace, there were many potioneers who specialized in concocting various potions for the emperor to take. However, none of those magic potions could compare to the legendary strength of a giant dragon. An attendant stepped down from beside Morince 2867 and arrived in front of Yang Feng. Yang Feng handed the 3 vials of dragon-strengthening magic elixir to the attendant, who took the elixirs and walked towards Morince 2867. Morince 2867 clapped his hands. The light and shadows beside him distorted, and a wizard with a hooked nose, a thin figure, dressed in a wizard robe, and a gloomy aura suddenly appeared. After seeing the wizard, Yang Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. The wizard's spirit force was as vast as the sea. He was clearly a legend-rank wizard. The mage took the dragon-strengthening potion, opened it, and smelled it. With a tap of his hand, a drop of the dragon-strengthening potion flew into his mouth. The wizard said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, these 3 vials of potions are genuine. They are indeed the lost potion dragon-like strength. If these 3 vials of potions were really refined by Ian, then he is indeed a top grand pharmacist." Morince 2867 said with a smile, "Very well, Hin, I like the potions you offered. I want these vials of potions and the potion formula in your hands." Yang Feng smiled and handed a potion formula to the guard beside him. "This is the potion formula." The guard immediately handed the potion formula to Morince 2867. Morince 2867 casually threw the formula to the wizard beside him. Looking at Yang Feng more favorably, he said with a smile, "Ian, I'll accept your treasures." What reward do you want? Speak. For the treasures this humble servant offered to make you happy, your majesty, it is this humble servant's greatest honor. To be able to serve you, your majesty, is this humble servant's lifelong wish. Yang Feng smiled slightly, then his tone changed. He pointed to the official who just jumped out and said, "This person, while this humble servant was talking with your majesty, without obtaining your majesty's permission, interrupted your majesty and framed this humble servant. Your majesty, please uphold justice for this humble servant." Morant's 867th's indifferent gaze fell on the official. The official's legs went soft, and he pleaded bitterly, "Your majesty, I didn't frame him. Your majesty, I really didn't frame him." Morant's 2867th said indifferently, "Martini, you dare to frame a greater aristocrat of the empire? Drag him out and hang him." Martini slumped to the ground, snot and tears flowing down his face, and kowtowed repeatedly, "Your majesty, this humble servant didn't frame him. Your majesty." Several guards walked over from the side, grabbed Martini, and dragged him outside. In the reception hall, gazes filled with fear and dread focused on Yang Feng. When Yang Feng saw Martini being dragged out, a chill involuntarily welled up in the abyss of his eyes. An official of the imperial court was dragged out and killed after saying a few words. There wasn't even a trial. The danger level of Morant's 2867th could well be imagined. He was an incapable ruler among incapable rulers. With such an incapable ruler sitting on the throne, Yang Feng felt that his fate was not under his control. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.